Welcome to MSG Presents. I'm your host with the most, the man with the plan, the Scottie Pippen of podcast pimping. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to be talking about the left brain approach to managing money today. My name is McLoyd, financial coach, financial advisor. This episode, we are not giving any type of financial advice, but we are just having a general conversation about the left brain approach to managing money. I have a guest here, Mr. Rozerrio Camel. He and I worked together for some time. I was his financial coach. He is now being coached in a lot of other areas. He is also a real estate investor, works in the financial industry. Mr. Camel, thank you for having this conversation today. What else do you want to tell the audience about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm also working on some startup ideas in tech. I'm still working on those things. I've worked across different industries, aerospace, commercial aerospace, military aerospace, HVAC, and now I'm in the finance industry, working as a software engineer.
Cool. Great. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here today, and I'm looking forward to having a really interesting conversation.
Thank you. It's good to be here. The left brain is a little bit more strategic. So basically, it's more so thinking in terms of how can I manage the expenses I have, looking at all those numbers, looking at, utilizing certain applications or even using a spreadsheet to try to capture everything. So basically taking the emotion out of it instead of trying to kind of hope and pray that you have enough money to cover everything the next month.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So I actually consider myself a right brain person as it relates to money. And I'll say, I think with us too, we see more like, how people say they see colors when they think about different concepts. I think that's how a lot of us right brain people are. So when I think about money, depending on where I am financially, I see certain colors. If I'm doing really well, the colors are bright. If I'm not doing well or where I want to be, the colors are, they're not as vibrant per se. And so, and another thing I think too with right brainers, like I'm thinking about money more from the perspective of what I want to accomplish with it. And I should ask you about that as a left brainer, but like money in and of itself, I could probably care less about it, but it's more about want to send my kids to college, want to retire, want to go to Tokyo, whatever it is, it's more based on life's major events versus the money itself. Can you relate to that since you're kind of a little bit of on both sides?
So as far as the left brain aspect of things, so more so me kind of having that initial fear is, I may not have enough money for these events, such as like buying a house or, even with kids, how am I going to pay, for certain things for the future, things like estate planning and be able to purchase like a vehicle or something of that nature with my kids, basically thinking about, not thinking kind of long-term, thinking long-term, but kind of being very cautious with it because I'm seeing the numbers where now I'm not thinking I have more so a long-term perspective. So in some regards, it's not always the best way to kind of think that way because it kind of puts you in a position where you won't be able to advance. So I kind of have to implement kind of a left and right brain approach when it comes to certain things.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it definitely a hybrid approach would be best because I feel like a right brain person, if you're just looking at it from sort of this abstract perspective, that's not good. And then on the left brain side, if you're just looking at it from being technical and where's the budget spreadsheet and all this stuff, that's not good either. There's a little bit of a mix required. How would you say a person can develop a better mix to where they're even on both sides, left brain and right brain?
So as far as the left brain side, basically taking kind of an assessment of where you are and developing a budget and trying to set some short-term and long-term goals. These are the numbers for what the numbers look. From the right brain side, be more optimistic and say, hey, look, I have enough reserves to go into invest, let's say real estate, for example, or even investing in stocks or any other type of investment vehicles that will kind of create cash flow or some kind of passive revenue stream.
Yes. Yeah. I like that balance. I like that balance. And now I wanted to also ask you, so since you've kind of identified yourself as kind of be more on the left side, what are some of the challenges and limitations that you have faced that you think you might be able to help the listeners to overcome?
I would say before last year, I had a lot of kind of limiting beliefs about money. And it came down to just looking at the numbers and not wanting to look at the numbers. Well, not looking at the numbers one day and then looking at the numbers and I was like, okay, well, I can't do this. I can't do that because I'm not looking at it from a perspective of optimism because I didn't have that guidance to try to look into a higher, get on a higher trajectory. And also a lot of this kind of comes from growing up too, in an environment where that wasn't taught. More so was saving money, but saving it for what? So if you save money, you have to think about it in terms of, okay, is the money going to grow? How is the money going to grow? And I found out in the last year or so that, certain traditional vehicles aren't necessarily the best if you want to really grow your money.
Definitely. And I'm glad you brought up the fact of, how you were raised, because I was going to ask you that as well. I was going to ask you, do you believe that the way you were raised contributed to you being sort of more on that left side of the equation when it comes to money?
Yes, because more so I knew I didn't have a safety net. If I were to, let's say everything I tried to do didn't work out and I had to kind of start back over, I knew that wasn't going to be a safety net. So I worked, I like to work very hard and try to make sure that, okay, this doesn't work, then I have a bunch of contingency plans in place. That same mindset can be applied to money. Okay, well, let's say you lose your job or maybe you lose some money in other investment vehicles, then you have these other vehicles that can help you make up that difference.
Yeah, definitely. Now, for the audience, I want to make sure that I'm really big on defining words and terms. So a lot of times people will be listening to these types of conversations and certain things aren't defined. So I want to define 3 terms. Rozerrio, I'm going to use your help on this, but one, I want to define, what does the word money mean? Money. So I'm going to give my definition and I want to get yours, but when we talk about the left brain approach to managing money, when we talk about money, I'm talking about anything that you own that has value. So I'm not just talking about paper bills and coins and things of that nature. That's great. But I'm also talking about, you may have investment accounts. You may have artwork that has value. You might have jewelry, whatever it is. All of these things have to be managed in order to be successful financially. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm speaking about money or currency. What is your definition of money?
So my definition of money is more so, total is used as a utility for purchasing or exchange for a service. It's essentially the replacement of what used to be called the barter system, where you would do some kind of favor or some kind of service for someone else and they'll compensate you with some kind of other service or some resource. So essentially it's a resource that's awarded based on some service that's provided.
Okay. I like that. So a resource, something of value that can be exchanged for something else of value. Would you consider time money?
I think time it's not the same thing as money. Time's a lot more valuable than money because the problem with time is that it's irreversible versus with money, you can lose, gain, or stay the same, but you can never gain back your individual time. Although you can leverage other people's time, you can't gain your time back.
Okay. And I agree with that. I think that time is a resource that you can use to generate money, but they are 2 different things. Okay. So we've defined money. Now, if you could define and let's use a definition that a child could understand, something really simple, but how would you define a left brain person? What are the characteristics of a left brain person?
So I would say a left brain person is someone who thinks about things that are more, let's say, I don't want to say technical because then I have to explain what technical means. So, uh, in a way that's more, you're looking at things in terms of different steps. So let's say you you want to buy an ice cream or something like that. Okay, what are the steps it's going to take for me to get the amount of money to need to purchase it? I was like, okay, well, I need to do this, 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 and this. So that's why I think of in terms of kind of leveraging.
Okay. Yeah, I can get with that. I mean, and just to add to that, I think left brain people deal more in the concrete realm.
Yes.
So what they can see, what they can put their hands on. It's very grounded in reality, quote unquote. Reality meaning, the here and now. Like, what can you show me? What can I put my hands on? Even to the point where I think a lot of left brain people favor, for example, investing in real estate, like physical real estate that they can drive by, put their hands on, touch, where maybe a right brain person, and I'm going to define how I see right brain in a second, but a right brain person might be okay with putting most of their money in the stock market, even though they can't really physically see the stock.
Right.
Right. And so a right brain person, from my definition, they're more into the creativity, the intuition, the emotional sort of aspect of things when they're thinking about decision making. It's less concrete and more, like I said, the colors of it or how I feel about it, or just being really creative, even if there's nothing tangible right there in front of me, type of thinking. What do you think about that definition for right brain?
Yeah, definitely for right brain, like with the comparison between stocks and real estate, you can go by and see the actual property if you want to see it, whether it be a commercial property or a single family property. Whereas stocks, you don't really know kind of the inner working of what's going on as you're investing in stocks. So you're kind of basically putting your faith in the other people's systems, all the way you're putting your faith in other people's systems too with, let's say, commercial real estate, but it's not as well, it's like a black box kind of thing. So you're basically putting your faith in a lot of your gaining something from those investments.
Okay. And most of the people because I know you are a real estate investor and you also work in the financial industry, but just from kind of, maybe you don't know for sure, but if you had to guess, most of the people that you deal with in the finance room or the finance world, would you say more of them are right brain or left?
There's a mix. I know in our previous companies that I worked for, most were left brain, but they were still looking into more traditional ways of investing because it's more familiar. Whereas, with more tangible assets, there's a kind of a stigma. It's like, oh, well, I don't know about anything about that because that's not something I'm exposed to every day. So like, commercial real estate, it's all around us. So it's just a matter of just understanding what can be gained from that compared to how, let's say, a lot of the stocks and other traditional vehicles are done. Also, there's other more savvy people for work who do look into both.
So you're saying where you used to work, there was more left brain, but now as you're going along, you feel like people are kind of straddling both sides.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, if you're listening to this conversation and you're out there and you're like, okay, this is cool. We're talking about the left brain to approaching, money management. We got Mr. Camel here who says he is definitely left brain, but kind of getting more on the other side. I want to make sure we give the audience some strategies or systems that they can use to manage that left brain mindset. So like when you and I were working together or even before or after, what systems do you think people should check into as left brainers to help them rein things in a bit?
So definitely what I've used, I had a spreadsheet where I was tracking all my daily expenses, also tracking any vacation expenses, any debts, tracking my net worth, tracking future purchases, budgeting every single thing, like most of the majority of the categories of things that I started seeing a lot of patterns in. Basically, like look into your, if you don't have a spreadsheet, like look into your bank account statements and just see a pattern of all the expenses. And then that's the best way of kind of being able to track a budget. And if you do that, then you can be able to track everything a lot more efficiently and see, oh, wait, well, I spent this much on this. So I remember you mentioned before about this app called the Monarch Money. I actually signed up for it yesterday.
Okay.
And I was so in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
So I had been working on it for like a couple of hours, and it saved me a lot of time. I'm still using the spreadsheet to a certain extent, but I'm slowly, moving to that because I've already gotten that knowledge of being able to budget effectively, be able to track all my expenses effectively. And I'm able to kind of see the comparisons. Like, oh, this does it on a much better level. But it's good to kind of do the manual approach first before you start using it, because then you may get caught up in a lot of the other features. And if you don't have those skills already honed in, it'll be a little track it, which and then be able to kind of curb spending where necessary.
Definitely. Yeah. The only reason why I felt comfortable recommending that to you is because you had done the work of the sort of manual way. So you know how to budget in and out from using a spreadsheet and just that work of checking everything. But yeah, Monarch Money is, and this might be a quick commercial for Monarch Money, but this thing is way better than like Mint.com or any of these other apps that I've ever used. The main thing I like about it is, first of all, the interface is done really well. The way that they break out the categories of things that you can track to me is very comprehensive. I feel like they better categorize transactions without you having to manually change a bunch of stuff. I mean, you are going to have to change some things no matter which one you use, but I feel like with Mint, you had to change a lot, almost everything you had to categorize. This one gets a lot of it right the first time, which is really helpful. And then you can track your budget in real time. And I mean, you could do this on Mint, but I just think the interface on this one is better. But like if you've budgeted, if you're out there, you're like, I'm struggling with budgeting. This month I budgeted $300 for groceries. If you use this app or this software, there's like maybe a day delay in terms of the transactions coming in, but you can generally know like, okay, I've spent $150 of my $300 budget, which is extremely helpful. It just saves a lot of time, and you can check your cash flow. Like I said, you can set up your budget. It's just all these different things that you can do categorically with your money. Check out Monarch Money. Check it out. I wish I could be like what do you call it? Like an affiliate or something where I could have a code for people out to maybe they'll partner with me, but I like it that much. I like it.
Yeah. As soon as I signed up, because I was going to sign up for a few weeks ago, and I said, you know what, we can hold on and wait. And then I saw that net worth feature too. But it's really good to kind of see, all your assets and liabilities, and then and then also forecast what your income's going to look like.
Absolutely.
And also have a recurring expenses calendar with recurring expenses. That's good.
Yeah, I love it. I'm pulling it up real quick right now just to make sure I'm not missing like some of the main features. But the other thing is, you can do this with most of them, but you can pull in multiple accounts to track as well. Yeah. So like you might have one account for your business, you might have one for personal, you might have a bunch of credit cards. Like you can bring all of that data in, track it, and then categorize it. That's extremely helpful. So yeah, I like, and I'm going to use that with all my clients going forward after they learn the manual sort of route. But it was hurting me because after we did the manual route before, I really didn't want to send people to Mint. And then Mint, I think they discontinued the way I don't even know if they offer the service anymore because it merged into
you got rolled into Credit Karma.
Credit Karma. And so in Credit Karma, I tried to actually use Mint in there. It just doesn't even work. So
Yeah, you can actually transfer all your transactions from Mint into. I didn't do that because I didn't want to have to go through all of that. I said, you know what, let me just start from here and then just go from there. Just track everything.
yeah.
So
And the other thing I like about this thing, and I don't want to spend the whole time talking about Monarch Money, but it is that good. It goes back pretty far in time too. Like you could go back, I think 2 years or so.
2 years.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, you couldn't do that as another software platform. You couldn't go back 2 years.
Right.
So let's talk to the audience here. So maybe this would appeal more to the left brainers, but if you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I want to be clear with what's happening with my money. Quick pause. If you are enjoying MSG Presents, make sure to subscribe and share. Now back to the episode. Excuse me, allergies. I want to be clear with what's happening with my money, and I want more metrics to be able, so a left brain person would be more into the metrics and what's my net worth and how much did I spend on food. This will be great for you, but I also think it'll be good for right brainers because you might not care as much about the metrics, but the visual representation of your money is very appealing.
Right.
So you can look at the numbers, and then you can do a pie chart and graphs and all that stuff. And so a lot of right brainers that might appeal to them because of the colors and all of that.
Left brainers love that stuff too. Like pie charts, bar charts, pie charts, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like the graphs, they really like that stuff too. But,
Okay.
Also, they have a goals feature where you just track your goals. So it'd be good to kind of say, okay, well, I want to have this by the end of the year, and you can just track it there.
So absolutely. So you all check out Monarch Money, whether you're right brain or left. I think you'll like it. I've been using it for a couple of months, and I just got charged. It was like $45 for the year or something. It was insane. So check it out. Check it out. Okay. So let's make sure we hit all these points on. So we've defined left brain, we defined right brain. We talked about what money actually is. Rozerrio was giving us some examples of systems that we could use. I wanted to bring up the system of budgeting in and of itself. Budgeting is a system. I know we throw the word around a lot, but all it is a systematic way for you to keep up with what's going on with your money. Your system could be run many different ways. You could use an app like what we were just talking about. You could use a spreadsheet. You could write it on a piece of paper. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you are on a daily basis keeping up with your transaction. How do you feel about budgeting as a system?
I think it's a good system to have because if it works well with your personal expenses, think about how it will work well with your business expenses, with your expenses that you're going to be having for your investments. So it's something that creates a positive domino effect and something that you're just doing just to kind of manage your life. It has so many benefits.
I couldn't agree more. It definitely helped me change my financial life. So I'm right brain, but because there may be more emotion or some of these other things there, me tracking my money every day allows me to keep those things in check. Right. So I don't want to wait 3 or 4 days and then have this big issue because, I didn't know all this stuff happened with my money. I just do it every day, keeps the emotions down. And it makes me feel that feeling like, I am preparing for my kids to go to college, or we're going to go on vacation on time. Like we said, it helps me to manage that right brain side and also continue to develop that left brain side, which is more about, yes, this is a system. I have a template. Templates are another big thing. any financial person you deal with, coach, advisor, whatever, always try to figure out what templates that they have that you might be able to use, because it just saves you a lot of time. So if somebody's like, you need to track your net worth, ask them, do you have a template for that? Or do you have a software or something where you can quickly do these things and it's just more efficient for busy people?
Right.
Yeah.
But it saves a lot of time. And once you get used to using that template, you can automate things. And it gets to the point where it's not something you have to think about all the time.
Exactly. Another system that you and I talked a lot about when we were working together, which was the system of taking your phone. And I think left brain people will be more okay with this, I think. But it's say you're on vacation. And I just did this. My wife and I went to Vegas. I put every transaction in the notes section of my phone.
Nice.
And you might be thinking, well, I know you're okay with this. You've done it as well. But like, if you're listening, you might be thinking like, how can you have a good time if you're constantly putting stuff in your phone? But because I'm a right brain person, I feel better because I'm doing that. We got 2 slices of pizza. It was $18. All I'm doing is putting it in real quick and I can go on with the rest of what I'm doing. But I don't feel like I'm out of control with my spending because I'm looking in real time.
Also, another thing I've been doing is just using cash. I say, and it's just because it's real, it's right there. You can just count it. You know, you spent this amount and then you move on to this, like you said, report it removes the emotion out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of that as well. Using cash, again, you feel more like you're not out of control. You've taken a certain amount of cash out of the ATM or the bank and you're like, this is what I have to work with. Kind of know where you are in real time.
Right.
You don't have to wait for your account to update and all this stuff. You know where you are because you know what you have left. So yeah, that's a strategy for left brainers and right brainers. So you can control the emotional part, the really literal part, because you're holding the cash in your hand and you can use it to manage things better.
Right.
So what have we missed in terms of this left brain approach to navigating that financial journey? What other things would you bring out for the audience?
I would say that definitely from a left brain perspective, try not to limit yourself because you are in a certain place now doesn't mean you can't get to where you like to get. So that's where the right brain aspect, being creative, thinking out, okay, how can I double my money in, let's say 5 years? There's a lot of different ways of doing that. Let's say commercial real estate, for example, you can more than likely do that in 5 years. Of course, you have to come up with a, larger investment up front, but it's an investment that's going to grow, especially if you're working with the right sponsors. Also, even like working with having the diversified portfolio, not just real estate, but, stocks. People are maybe wanting to invest in bonds or any other different vehicles or investment vehicles. So focus more on investment vehicles that's going to help grow your money. People also use 401ks, IRAs, basically having your money in different places. So that way you won't feel as kind of stuck. Say, okay, well, I got, 1 or 2 accounts. I want to be able to kind of put things in different places. So I won't feel like I'm in a situation where I have to just work so hard because I'm not prepared for later on, let's say retirement. People who are in retirement age, a lot of retirees tend to have, a large 401k or IRA, and what's going on with inflation and the numbers that we needed to have at retirement age maybe 20 years ago doesn't ring true today. Won't ring true in another 20 years. So, being able to find ways to grow your money, being able to kind of, look into active and passive investments, definitely key.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I kind of want to ask you as we wrap up here, people may think that left brain people don't have any emotions as it relates to money, but you and I both know that is not true. They definitely do. What are some of the things that you would recommend to a left brain person because they're looking at the numbers and the concrete stuff and they're not happy with what they see? What are some things that they can do to sort of manage that disappointment that they might have in themselves currently?
I would definitely say not to probably be more so on the logical side because then that makes it worse. So I think one way of looking at it is kind of taking the objective view and say, okay, I'm in this place here, but I want to get to the next. I want to get in a much better position. How can I put myself in that position? So all this year I've been focused more on having a better mindset when it comes to financial literacy, financial independence, when it comes to being in rooms with people who are in much higher levels than I am. So definitely surrounding yourself by people who are already in a much, better level, or being able to kind of sit down and just kind of assess your situation and say, okay, how can I just write some goals down? I kind of understand why you are in that situation and find ways to kind of, now that's where the left brain side start finding solutions to that problem by tackling, okay, why am I spending this much on this? Why am I spending this much on that? How can I reduce spending here? How can I use the money I'm spending here to invest in this, or place it somewhere where I won't touch it, like a savings account or IRA or some other investment vehicle, things like that.
Great information that you're providing. Great information. So yeah, definitely. And then also they can do what you did, which was hire a coach for guidance, accountability, and support. And this is something that right and left brainers can do. Sometimes we have to leverage somebody else's confidence. We might not be feeling 100% about where we're going, or we might know we want to get to another level, but we just need some help. There is nothing wrong with that at all. And it actually speeds up your process. It accelerates you getting to your goals, but you're not in it by yourself. And I know, just like anybody else, it's hard to piece things together watching a bunch of YouTube videos. And don't get me wrong, there's some fabulous YouTube videos about money, and I watch them to this day, but it's difficult when you're trying to watch 100 videos and then apply it to your financial situation, because you still kind of need some strategy or a sequence that can be helpful. So having a coach can be a game changer. Don't discount that, whether you're left brain or right brain.
So that's another thing about being left brain. I know a lot of us, and myself included, tend to get our own way and thinking, oh, I can do all this and that. And I realized, up until like 2 years ago, you know what, I need help. I need to get coached in this, because I've been able to take myself to a certain level. How can I get much further? And there's people, coaches like yourself and others that I'm still getting coached to this day on things. Can they see something that you may not see? So it's good to kind of, put you have to kind of take yourself out of it and then, let someone else help guide you.
Exactly. And even myself, I have coaches, and I will have coaches to the end of time. Like, it never stops, and which is a good thing, right? Because no matter what level a person may think they're on, there's some other level that you're trying to get to, and a coach can help you get there faster. So I have my coaches. I'm actually getting coached right now about trading options.
Nice.
Yeah. So a lot of financial advisors and coaches, they may know like the technical aspects of certain things, but when it comes to trading, that's a whole different ball game. Just because you're a licensed financial advisor or coach, it doesn't mean you know how to trade every single asset that's in the market. So I've actually wanted to learn more about options. And so I have coaches for that. And yeah, it's speeding up the process. And I'm a right brainer. So for me, it makes me feel better that I got somebody right there that they can demonstrate that they are an expert in this. They got a community and all this different stuff. And so, yeah, I can learn it, and I don't have to worry about figuring out a bunch of stuff that I don't know.
That's awesome, because I've been hearing about like commodities and things like that. I'm definitely interested in hearing about that option. So whenever you get some more experience with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think you would like that as an asset to trade, for sure. All right. So this has been a great conversation about the left brain approaching money management. We've talked about left and right brain, but do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience? on this topic?
I would like to say that, as we said at the beginning, the hybrid approach is definitely the most ideal because you may have goals that's kind of like up in the stars, but I have like several of those. But I find that it helps you kind of stay level to, not just thinking about what you can do, what you can realistically do, but what you can kind of, not necessarily what people could call unrealistic, but it's something that can be done if you put your mind to it.
Definitely. And you are certainly living proof of that. So that's great. My final thoughts on this are, you're listening to this, maybe you're not clear on whether you're just in general, you're left brain or right brain. Do a little bit of research, sit with yourself and try to figure out like, where do I fall on these two spectrums? Maybe you're in the middle, maybe you're way on one side, maybe you're all the way on the other. But once you figure out where you stand, listen to this interview again, but like really get some strategies that are more suited to who you are as a person. Because we all know when you go online, it's kind of general. Do this, do that. But I mean, if you're a right brain, and this is coming from a left brain person, that might not be applicable to you. So find out where you stand and then get the strategies that are suited to your personality and the way that you approach life. Before we close today's episode, a quick heads up. This show isn't just about talk. It's about movement for those building a legacy. It's about helping people heal from their past and level up in life. Real conversations that matter. If you're vibing with the message, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody that needs to hear it. Peace.